Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about believing in something that's unbelievable. Everybody has, at some point in their life, been challenged to believe something that might be unbelievable. If you go fishing, or if you know anybody who likes to fish, oftentimes they'll say, it was this big, and oftentimes our first impression is to say that unbelievable. Sometimes people will say unbelievable as an expression of awe about something that you've told them or a story you shared with them. You'll say, man, listen to this, or did you see that football game? Did you see how it ended? And the other person might respond, unbelievable, just unbelievable. There's something about the word unbelievable that we use not necessarily as a bad thing, but to put emphasis on the sheer awe or coolness that an event has or that an outcome has. We find in today's gospel, in John chapter 6, Jesus is giving us the bread of life discourse, among some other things. But I want to look at, in particular, just a few verses. Jesus tells the crowd that he is the bread of life, and they have a hard time with that. He says, in verse 40, he says, "For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who sees the Son believes in him and has eternal life." And that's really cool, because as part of this discourse, he said the will of God the Father is that everyone believe in Jesus and have eternal life. That's God's will for me and for you, for the whole world, that they believe in Jesus and they have eternal life. Now, when he finishes this statement about him being the bread of life and that it's the will of the Father for everybody to be saved, it says that the Jews murmured, and they begin to say things like, how can he say that he's the bread of life? Isn't that Joseph's son? Isn't that Mary's son? Do we not know him? He's talking to folks that obviously knew him when he was younger, or they knew him and gotten intimate with him in a friendship. And so it was kind of unbelievable, like, who does he think he is? He's from Jerusalem. He's from here. He's a local dude. It's kind of like if you ever known somebody that has become famous in some way, the status, it isn't the same if you knew him beforehand. And so that's what they're doing. They're saying, we know him. How can he be saying these grand things? It's a little unbelievable. But then Jesus stops them and says, you guys need to stop murmuring. And he does something cool. He quotes Isaiah. He says, no one comes to me unless the Father draws him. And then that's not Isaiah, but this is Isaiah. Isaiah 54:13 says, all your children shall be taught by the Lord, and great shall be the peace of your children. And Jesus is saying, they shall be taught by God. Everyone who listens to my Father and learns from him comes to me. And so that's Jesus' reply to, hey, who's this guy? And he says, I'm nothing. I mean, we know that he's not nothing, but he's saying, nobody comes to me unless they first hear from God, whose will it is for everybody to believe in me. And I think that's very cool, because then what we see happen later on, especially in verse 68. Before that, it says a lot of people decided to leave. They couldn't accept the fact that Jesus said that he was the bread of life, is the Father's will for everybody to believe in him and to be saved. So a lot of people left, and they were saying, it's just a hard teaching. It's unbelievable. Almost literally, it's to the point where some people just said, this is unbelievable. I can't, I'm out. But then we hear Jesus look at his friends, his closest friends, and say, do you also want to go? And we hear Peter in 68 say, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. I think that's so profound that Peter recognizes immediately. He says, where else are we going to go? In a time like this, if you'd have told me around Christmas time, hey, in 2 months or 3 months, the whole globe is going to be shut down and staying at home because there's going to be a health crisis, a pandemic, I would have said, unbelievable. I can't believe that. But it happened. And there's lots of things that sometimes I have a hard time. There's some hard teachings. And I think that's true for most of us. We have some hard teachings that we have to accept sometimes, some hard truths. But just because we might think it's unbelievable, sometimes it's true, even though it's unbelievable. Sometimes the fish are actually this big. Sometimes Alabama gets beat. Sometimes it's okay to begin to think, what if this Jesus is the real deal? What if he really is the bread of life? Sometimes, even though it's hard, we can believe the unbelievable. He rose from the dead, and it is our Father's will that all of us be saved and inherit eternal life. So, anytime in the near future, if you have a reason to doubt that God is on the throne, if you have a reason to doubt that Jesus is who he says he is, just be encouraged by the words of Peter as he says, Lord, where else are we going to go? In the midst of these unbelievable times, where else are you going to go? See you next time.